Can you imagine for a moment that you sat in math class, you learned what numbers were, you learned how to count, you knew all of the numbers that ever existed, and you knew about what equations were. You knew which side of the equation was which, you knew the difference between numerator and denominator in fractions. Imagine you know all of this knowledge about math and mathematics, but you never solved problems. Now, I want to I want to connect this story, this example, to something that you might be somewhat familiar with, especially in automotive, called ASE certifications. So, having been an automotive technician for over 10 years, working with a lot of guys, a lot of them really awesome, and some of them maybe struggled a little bit. But it's a hard job. It's not easy. And one of the things that I always heard guys say, and gals, I worked with a couple of gals, but one of the things that I always heard people say is that ASE certifications are not necessarily a good indicator of whether or not someone knows what they're doing. And I think if you're an automotive tech watching these videos of mine and you're watching this particular video, you can comment below. Let me know what your experience has been. One of the things that is interesting about automotive is it kind of today requires both. You need to be book smart. You need to know how the systems work. Otherwise, you're never going to solve the problem. If you don't know that modern brake systems are often set up as a diagonal split, in other words, left front, right front, left rear, most of the time, and that a lot of times proportioning is now not done by a proportioning valve, but actually the ABS module itself, then you're probably going to get some things wrong, especially in those really hard cases where you really have to dig deep. However, just knowing about these systems is not enough to actually be good at figuring them out when they break. So that's what I wanted to bring up today is the the reality that ASE certifications, while they do communicate some professionalism in the industry, they do not necessarily indicate that the person is a great problem solver. When I was in my early 20s and very new to the automotive industry, had just graduated from school, the ASE certifications came to me very easily because I was a great test taker. And being a great test taker helps you to get the right answer on these. You can study up in advance, you can learn the answers to the questions that they're typically looking for and easily pass. Whenever you have a test like that, it doesn't really challenge your knowledge. So let me talk about the automotive training that I got in school and how that differed from some of the tests that I took for the ASE certifications. In school, we had an auto shop, an actual shop that was attached to the classroom. So we would sit in the classroom for maybe half the period, which is about 5 hours. We'd get up early in the morning, 7:30. We'd go to class till 12:30. And so we'd spend about 5 hours in class, and then we'd go to work. We'd work from maybe 1:30, some of us 1 if we worked close to the class. We'd eat lunch real quick, head to work, and actually have a real job. And then the very next day we'd come back, and if we had a problem we couldn't figure out, we'd go talk to the professor. So it was really interesting being able to actually put your feet to the actual systems. And the other half the class period, if I didn't make this point already, half the class books, the other half was, all right, there's cars out in the shop sitting there. You're going to go ahead and walk through, these tasks and figure some stuff out. The best course that I remember was the electrical. He was very good at bugging these cars in a way that forced you to have to really work through the diagnostic approach. So what makes for a good problem solver? So just because someone has ASE certifications doesn't mean they're a great problem solver. What makes for a good problem solver? Well, a good problem solver typically asks questions in advance and does not assume anything about the situation until they have a reason to conclude a high probability. So, and that also, even if you've made an assumption, you need to challenge that and test it. So a good problem solver is going to say, hey, the customer said this about the car. Let me actually, let me confirm that that's true. And if for some reason I don't have a great picture of whether or not that's true and accurate, then I need to ask more questions. So then you move from understanding the problem into actually working through the problem using the hypothesis that you've come up with to test and verify the details. And then once you've verified the details and tested those things, like now you can confirm or deny your own presuppositions or your hypothesis. And once that happens, you can kind of analyze the data and say, what does this mean based on what I know about the systems and how they work? Once again, the knowledge that you gained passing the ASE tests, that's what you're actually using as this rubric. So you're not just learning the details that they want you to learn in ASE, and some of the ASE questions kind of they do try and have a little bit of problem solving baked into them, but a lot of times it's knowing details. So memorizing details and actually solving novel problems is something that you have to actually work through. So if you have a good tech, first of all, he's worth it or she's worth it. And second, if you have a great tech that's really good at problem solving, know that they have a mental framework that they use on top of whatever knowledge allowed them to get these ASE certifications. So I hope this helps to understand the difference between ASE certifications and actual problem solving. So if you go to a shop next time, maybe you understand that ASE certified may look pretty, and it is a good thing, but it is not the only thing. Anyway, guys, comment about your experiences below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Hey y'all, if you've stuck around to the end of this video, first of all, thank you. And second, I'd like to give you a bonus. I've never done this on my channel before, so this ought to be fun. Anyway, so if you're watching, I want to test your automotive knowledge a little bit. I had a situation where a friend of mine was driving back to Florida through Georgia on I-95, and on his way home, he had a situation where they needed to take a pit stop. So they pulled off the interstate, and as they were pulling into the parking space, the van they were driving, a Dodge Caravan, stalled. And they could not restart it unless it was in park or neutral. As soon as he put it in drive or reverse, it would just stall right out again. Now, I never had a chance to fix this car. It never made it down to Florida. But I did go pick him and his family up and bring them back home. So if you'd like to guess in the comments and use some of that problem solving experience or knowledge that you have that transcends these ASE certifications, let me know in the comments. If I get 100 comments, I'll go ahead and tell you guys what it was. Thanks for watching.